Going back to Thanksgiving night of 1983, one major wrestling event would take place, within its specific territory of course, that would leave a lasting impact for both the wrestlers and the fans. Several matches with some of the NWA's top talent in front of one of the most well-known wrestling cities in the US, culminating with a very heated cage match main event that paid off an eventful year-long build. Oh, my apologies, that's not the show we're covering. Over 1,000 miles out west and across several different states from the first ever Starrcade, Fritz von Erichs World Class Championship Wrestling would host its own first, with a Wrestling Star Wars event held on Thanksgiving. While the matches would air across the following weeks of world-class TV shows, we'll be looking at this event as a whole in today's video. Well, most of it. I'll elaborate on that later. So hopefully you've got the dinner prepared and are ready to witness some gritty but intense Texas wrestling. Let's watch WCCW's Thanksgiving Star Wars from 1983. Taking place at Reunion Arena, a sellout of 19,200 fans in attendance stand on their feet as Ralph Pauly starts things off by singing the national anthem. Our opening contest is a 6-man tag team match with Johnny Mantell, Mike Reed, and Jose Lothario taking on Boris Zurcov, Black Gordman, and Tonga John. Gordman gets in a cheap shot on Jose before the bell, with Mantell and Tonga starting as the legal men. John gets put into the headlock and tries to escape but ends up snapmared onto the mat. Johnny is able to reverse a hip toss before tagging in Reed and letting him keep the action grounded again. Tonga is finally able to attack after ending up on the ropes and brings Zurcov in to go after the chest and Gordman to kick the momentum towards his team. Tonga John comes back to nail another knee to the midsection and prevent Reed from starting a comeback, later connecting with the elbow for a near fall. Zurcov applies the chinlock, and Reed fights his way out to tag Mantell back in and sway the momentum, getting a 1 count off a butterfly suplex. The Dallas crowd go crazy when Lothario finally gets into the match, but off camera, Gordman sneak attacks Jose and helps Boris regain control. Gordman properly tags in and just as quickly falls to his opponent's fakeouts before sending himself through the ropes. Lothario stays on top with a backdrop, some arm drags, and a left hand that sends Black Gordman to ringside. Boris Zurcov deciding to tack himself back in and target the back much like Tonga John does. Lothario reverses an Irish whip into the corner as Black Gordman runs in to try and stop his rival, but that plan backfires before the match breaks down when everybody gets into the ring. The dust settling with Reed and Mantell taking turns dropping the Barbarian. Johnny ends up in the wrong corner and the heels waste little time choking him while the fans try to cheer him back in, all while Zurcov executes a clothesline before Lothario breaks the follow-up pin. The match breaks down again while Boris attempts a slam, but Johnny escapes and hits his own move, can't really tell since they cut away from it, and gets the 3 count to start the Thanksgiving action on a chaotic note as Lothario sneaks in a dropkick on Gordman right before the commercial break. Unfortunately, the second match on the card isn't included on this particular upload of the show, and I wasn't able to find footage of it elsewhere, but the missing link would get a countout victory over Buddy Roberts of the fabulous Freebirds. Speaking of the Freebirds, Bat Street USA plays through the speakers as Terry Gordy prepares to face Kevin Von Erich in this next matchup. Kevin shows Gordy no fear once the match begins, with a few tie-ups leading to the two trading arm drags and one of Fritz's kids playing offense before going after Gordy's left shoulder. Kev stays targeted on that arm when the two go back onto their feet, while the Freebird goes through some massive pain in that hold for several moments until a big boot finally breaks it up. Going for a second boot, however, ends up a big mistake when Gordy gets caught on the top rope and booted off by Von Erich. The crowd continue getting loud for Kevin when the competitors go for a test of strength, with Terry overpowering him, but the barefooted warrior gets some strength from the fans and returns to the mat for some more shoulder targeting once we're past the 5-minute mark. Von Erich lands his knee onto Gordy's left hand, taking him to the corner and trying to attack the thumb, following that by applying the claw when Gordy attacks with his knee and gets an opening to fight back. This comeback doesn't last long when Kevin bounces off the ropes for a flying crossbody and chooses to stretch Terry's left arm again, with the future Triple Crown champion finally able to roll over and bring Von Erich onto his feet, Irish whipping, then nailing the clothesline to once again try and buy himself some time. A rough-looking Snake Eyes helps Gordy to apply the chinlock, returning the favor for all of the arm work done throughout this match. Kevin fights out and reverses another Snake Eyes into one of his own, trying to go for a top rope dive and almost loses his balance when Terry stops him. Von Erich misses a rebound dropkick while Gordy misses the Oriental Spike, with another claw locked in, causing Gordy to nearly get himself DQ'd when throwing Von Erich over the top onto the apron and bringing him back in via the delayed suplex. Gordy then tries for a top rope splash when nobody's home, though Kevin doesn't have any better luck going for the running splash as Terry gets the knees up. Both men continue trading reversals in the corners before Gordy misses a running attack and allowing Kevin to fly with a crossbody to hand the Freebirds another loss. Buddy Roberts runs down to try and lay out the victor, throwing Kevin off from seeing Terry Gordy bringing in a cowboy boot as an equalizer. The two go after his right hand until Kerry and David run down to chase them out, checking on their brother while a slow motion replay of the stomps onto Kev's hand transitions us to the next break. Bill Mercer interviewed David Von Erich earlier in the day about his upcoming match against Kimala. He mentions David getting the only victory so far against the Ugandan giant, with Von Erich putting over how very dangerous his opponent is, and also brings up Skandor Akbar's failed attempt to get the claw banned in matches. David wraps up by promising that Akbar and Kimala will both get laid out with his family's signature move if he gets his way tonight. The NWA Texas Heavyweight Championship is on the line as David Von Erich defends against Kimala of Devastation Incorporated. The action starts with some belly slaps from the Ugandan, and Von Erich teasing the claw just like he did to score the aforementioned victory, with both men trading some massive blows around the ring until Kimala chops his way back into the match. More chops are thrown from the challenger, but don't completely wear down David, as shown when he fights back with a clothesline and dropkick that just barely knock the big man off his feet. A jumping knee is answered via a double chop, as Friday gives instructions from Akbar to Kimala, leading to more chops and a forehead bite as if Von Erich was a part of Thanksgiving dinner. The Texas champion ends up flying over the top rope to ringside, struggling to get himself back up until the crowd cheer another one of Fritz's sons on to fight back. David gets busted open, but finds his second win to get into an exchange until another bite to the cut on the forehead puts a stop to that. One more chop and a body splash doesn't win Kimala the title, instead leading to David getting up and once again locking in the claw. The hold is cinched in tight for several moments, finally taking down Kimala and making him bleed in the process. Friday, off camera, puts one of his legs onto the bottom rope to finally break the hold, though he and Skandor both paid dearly for this when both men received their own claws from Von Erich. The chaos of this leading to the referee calling for the bell and award the disqualification victory to David, though this matters very little once Devastation Inc. go to attack him. Kerry runs in for the save and even body slams Kimala before checking on his brother, with Mercer bringing up Akbar's statement that anyone who could in fact body slam the Ugandan giant would receive $10,000. Though you can imagine that he won't be so willing to cough up that prize money after everything that just went down. We return to the Von Erichs' earlier interview about Mike's in-ring debut, all three brothers giving him praise for the training he's gone through as the man himself tries to stay humble ahead of his match tonight at Star Wars. Our special guests in attendance tonight include former NWA President Sam Muchnick and General Manager of the Cardinals, Being Divine. It's time to see how well Mike Von Erich can hold his own as he faces the General Skandor Akbar with Kimala nowhere to be found. This all stems from Akbar whipping David Von Erich when Kerry and Mike came down to stop him, and the latter getting into a heated exchange with Akbar. Skandor finds himself upstaged by Mike in the early going, with another tie-up once again helping Mike shove him into the ropes and pull off a leverage pin for a 2 count. Mike's family has seemingly taught him well, even using his quickness to block Skandor's attacks in the corner and run towards him, causing the boss of Devastation Inc. to retreat momentarily. Akbar tries going back to the well, and it ends up backfiring with a drop toe hold and leg scissors from the younger Von Erich, as Mike then switches gears and goes after the left leg, keeping his opponent grounded until Akbar crawls to the ropes. Skandor's arm wringer gets reversed, allowing Mike to dropkick him but is unable to hit the second one, and thus the General takes back control of this match. Akbar stomps the back and shoves him face first into the turnbuckles, slamming Mike down and then calling for Friday to get out the whip, but turning his back allows Von Erich to roll him up and start his in-ring career with a victory. Kevin comes down to stop Friday, while Mike tries to give the General a taste of his own medicine before Akbar hightails it out of the ring. Akbar does return later on for the Super Destroyers, defending their American Tag Team Championships against the team of Iceman King Parsons and the Junkyard Dog. The duo with the thump and butt finishers hope to win the gold, with JYD getting into some lockups against Super Destroyer 1 while also blocking a punch. The dog tries to attack the left arm when Destroyer 1 stops him, and goes for a corner attack, only to get knocked down from Junkyard's right hand. Super Destroyer 2 and Iceman get tagged in, with Parsons getting sent off the ropes and end up chasing Destroyer out of the ring, much like, well, a dog. Destroyer 2 comes back in to reverse Keen's hip toss, but quickly gets pushed away and sent down onto the middle of the ring, with Iceman applying a headlock and using his agility to leap over and dropkick one half of the champions. Junkyard comes back in to continue dominating over Destroyer 2 and slow the pace with the ever-devastating chinlock. Akbar and Destroyer 1 strategize before his partner escapes and brings JYD into their corner. Destroyer 1 is tagged in, but quickly receives some strikes from the Mid-South Star, eventually finding an opening to avoid his running corner attack. Destroyer 2 throws some right hands and does everything to prevent Iceman from getting tagged back in, Super Destroyer 1 attempting the same, but falls to a knee lift. Cue the comeback from Parsons once he jumps back in, ending the sequence with the butt bud, but his follow-up cover gets broken up by Destroyer 2. He and JYD fight in one corner while Destroyer 1 sends King into another ring post, busting Iceman open, all while Junkyard Dog tries to fire the Dallas crowd up. The Super Destroyers target that wound on Parsons, keeping the attacks coming in their corner, but Destroyer 1 makes the mistake of letting King tumble towards his corner and giving JYD the hot tag he was looking for. Junkyard starts cleaning house as Parsons is helped to the back, the challenger now at a disadvantage to try and win this match. The Dog is still able to hold his own until Destroyer 2 cheap shots from behind to get his partner a near fall, with a middle rope diving chop at the 10-minute mark, but things quickly get heated when King Parsons runs back in to attack the Super Destroyers and lead to this ending in another disqualification. The chaos then goes from 10 to 11 when Iceman tries to go after Akbar, only for Destroyer 2 to hold him back and allow Skandor to use a flamethrower from under his robe towards King's face. The heels quickly grab their titles and head straight out of Reunion Arena as Junkyard and ringside staff check on the Iceman. Our semi-main event at Star Wars revolves around Chris Adams and Jimmy Garvin for the NWA American Heavyweight title, with the gentleman telling Bill earlier in the day that he feels confident with Sunshine being in his corner tonight to help prevent Precious from trying to help her man. The champion promises to retain his title while throwing shade at his former valet, and even Precious gets to throw a verbal jab due to them feeling that she's been, quote, pushing her weight around for so long. Jimmy makes sure he looks in top shape during his entrance, as Chris Adams dons the mix of the Union Jack and American stars, Sunshine following behind with a death stare towards Precious. Dallas goes crazy for Gorgeous' former valet, with Garvin continuing to insult her once the bell rings, but focuses on the challenger with a shoulder tackle. Adams evens it out with a body slam and goes after the left arm, as Mercer recalls Chris Adams defeating Jimmy under the Masked Avenger moniker after being denied another chance at the American title belt. Garvin delivers his own slam, but is unable to prevent the Englishman from dropping him back onto the mat, while the cameras cut to both Sunshine and Precious at ringside. Chris keeps momentum on his side, avoiding a rebound attack and getting a close roll-up before deciding to lock in the armbar, as Bill hypes the upcoming Christmas Star Wars event where Ric Flair will defend the NWA World title against David Von Erich, leading to Jimmy Garvin's Irish whip getting reversed and followed up with a hip toss and arm drag while Adam stays focused on the arm. His own Irish whip then gets blocked with a knee of Garvin in the corner, the American champion giving his opponent a headlock in the center of the ring and later sending his head into the turnbuckle. The beating goes on in front of Sunshine as she almost gets her hands on Jimmy amongst some chest attacks and the submission attempt, Chris finding the strength to lift and toss Jimmy towards another corner. Proceeding to start his comeback, Gorgeous tries begging Adams for mercy and instead receives the monkey flip and super kick that sends him to the floor. When Gentleman tries to suplex him back in, Precious grabs his foot to help Garvin drop the challenger down, but only gets to 2, leading to Sunshine chasing Precious out of the way and ending up on the apron where she pulls Garvin down by the hair to help Chris Adams get the pin to become the new American Heavyweight Champion. Sunshine finally gets her hands on Precious for a few moments before she and Jimmy head out of the ring, and referee David Manning catches a slap to the face when he tries to restrain her. At the very least, Sunshine got to have some payback on Gorgeous and the surprise that took her place, all while the fans celebrate Chris Adams winning the gold. But there's still a heated main event left to cover for Thanksgiving Star Wars. It all started at last year's Christmas Star Wars event. Some misunderstanding leading to Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy costing Kerry Von Erich his shot at the 10 pounds of gold inside of the steel cage, as well as igniting what would end up being the hottest feud in all of Texas between the fabulous Freebirds and the Von Erichs. Within that very same structure, tonight's main event decides whether the Texas Tornado or PS Hayes will lose and have to leave the territory for an entire year. Going off the limited footage we have to work with, Michael takes Kerry into the corner and throws some punches, but things end up turning around as Von Erich returns the favor and looks to apply the claw only to get punched away. All while Fritz watches from ringside. Kerry is sent headfirst into two different walls of the cage before Hayes takes off the wrapping from his left leg and uses it to choke and cut off his former friend, but doesn't get him the pin. Doc Hendricks tries for a face slam onto the turnbuckle when Kerry blocks the attempt and then takes the wrapping to help throw some right hands before tossing him into the chain link wall. Michael starts to bleed as Von Erich goes after the cut, with some more punches and a knee drop, but Hayes kicks his way to fight back and apply a sleeper, much like Kerry would do to his opponents. The Dallas fans get more anxious when Kerry ends up on the mat until an arm is raised and he fights his way into applying his own sleeper hold before getting sent into the cage. Hayes lays in the punches and bites the forehead to try and bust his rival open, connecting with the bulldog and dropping an elbow, but isn't enough to send Kerry out of Texas just yet. The suplex afterwards leads to a similar result, forcing Michael to pull out the piledriver and almost win had Kerry not gotten his foot onto the bottom rope. Hayes' frustration leads to a suplex attempt that gets reversed, while at ringside, Terry Gordy shows up and confronts Fritz as the competitors collide and knock each other down. Buddy Roberts climbs the structure to throw some brass knuckles in for his fellow Freebird, but Hayes is stopped from doing so when Kerry knocks him down, while the chaos carries over at ringside when the oldest Von Erich knocks down Gordy. Kerry grabs the knuckles and uses them accordingly as Roberts tries to climb in, but his loss of balance causes more damage than losing his hair ever could, with Kerry finally scoring the 3 count over Michael Hayes. Once the bell rings, Terry Gordy tries and fails to get his hands on Kerry, ending up towards the cage door where Fritz slams it right into his face. The crowd erupts in celebration as the fabulous Freebirds now have their careers and any future in Texas, especially with the Von Erich boys in question. Bill Mercer recaps all of the action from Reunion Arena as World Class goes off the air. Would it be a stretch to say that this whole show was more of a Thanksgiving feast than any bit of food you could eat? This edition of World Class's Wrestling Star Wars is a great example of why Fritz's company was one of the hottest products during the territories, with the card offering a great amount of action, not counting the lost footage of Roberts vs. Missing Link, and an electric Dallas crowd that helped to elevate practically every move throughout the night. The in-ring storytelling and presentation may not be as flashy or over-the-top as it would end up over the coming years. It's more than made up for with a constant energy and some great characters to go along with the major feuds in both Chris Adams and Sunshine against Garvin and Precious, and of course the Von Erichs facing a mix of Devastation Inc. and the fabulous Freebirds. The cage match was not just a hot main event, but it was also a very fitting way to wrap up the nearly year-long feud with the Freebirds and Von Erichs, having the heels' attempts of sabotage backfiring, all while Kerry and his dad got to send the crowd home happy, especially after a night where the other brothers got ambushed and attacked, by forcing one of them out of the company and utilized the same cage that had started all of their troubles in the first place. While there are plenty of Star Wars cards held throughout 1983, This particular edition is the best example of world-class championship wrestling in its prime and is highly recommended if you want to watch it week to week, or just for the sake of some old school wrestling as a part of your own Thanksgiving tradition.